It was one of those crisp fall mornings in a mid-sized American town, the kind where the air smells like pumpkin spice lattes even if you're nowhere near a Starbucks. The maple trees lining the suburban streets were blushing with reds, oranges, and yellows, each leaf crunching beneath sneakers and boots as neighbors headed off for work. The weather wasn't cold enough for heavy coats yet, but people had pulled out their light jackets, denim, fleece, and windbreakers, the kind you keep by the door for this in-between season. Inside a modest two-story house with a white porch and a flag waving lazily in the front yard, Mark Henderson, 32 years old, was seated in his small home office. Mark wasn't rich, but he wasn't broke either. Like most Americans his age, he lived on monthly paychecks, student loan payments still lurking in the background like a nosy neighbor, and a mortgage that sometimes felt like it had teeth. His office wasn't glamorous, just a desk from IKEA, a chair from Walmart, a printer that hadn't worked since the Obama administration, and, most importantly, his laptop. Now, this wasn't just a laptop. For Mark, it was his lifeline. His job in digital marketing depended on it. His grocery list lived inside it. His dreams of starting a side hustle selling quirky t-shirts online sat in half-finished designs on its desktop. Netflix, taxes, old college essays he swore he'd delete someday, his fantasy football league, it was all there. In America, your laptop isn't just a machine, it's a piece of your soul. And that morning, as golden sunlight poured through his blinds, Mark did what every American worker does before coffee. He opened his laptop, expecting the familiar glow. Instead, click, silence. He frowned, tried again. Click, black screen. The cursor blinked for half a second, then froze like it had stage fright. Mark laughed nervously, because that's what you do in America when something expensive starts acting suspicious. You laugh like, haha, this is just temporary, right? He tapped the screen, shook the mouse, pressed the power button harder, as if physical force might inspire digital cooperation. Nothing. The laptop coughed up a faint buzzing sound, then went completely silent. The screen dark, the keyboard cold. Mark sat back, rubbing his temples. Don't do this to me now. Not on a Monday. Outside, a mailman in navy blue uniform was walking by, earbuds in, nodding to country music. Across the street, Mrs. Thompson, a retired teacher, was watering her garden in her pink robe and fuzzy slippers. A couple jogged past in matching neon outfits, waving at Mark through the window like everything in the world was just fine. But inside his office, the air was heavy. The smell of burnt coffee from the kitchen wafted in, mixing with panic. His fingers drummed the desk. He tried again. Nothing. There's a particular kind of silence when your laptop crashes, not the peaceful silence of a quiet room, not the calming silence of a library, but the menacing silence of your entire life being held hostage by a machine. Americans don't fear ghosts, they don't fear storms, they fear the spinning rainbow wheel of death, and Mark had just met its cousin, the permanent black screen. Okay, he muttered, pacing the small room. Breathe, don't freak out. People lived for thousands of years without laptops. Abraham Lincoln didn't have Microsoft Word. Shakespeare didn't use Photoshop. I can survive. But then reality smacked him. His work project deadline was today. He was supposed to send in a campaign pitch to his boss, Jeff, a man who wore three-piece suits even on Zoom calls and judged people based on how many unread emails they had. Mark grabbed his phone and called IT support. A cheerful recorded voice greeted him. Thank you for calling Tech Solutions. Your estimated wait time is 54 minutes. 54 minutes. Mark groaned. By then I'll be unemployed and selling lemonade on the street. Every American has that moment when technology betrays them. Maybe it's the Wi-Fi going down during the Super Bowl, or the printer jamming the second you're late for a meeting. For Mark, it was his laptop crashing on the very day his future depended on it. He sat back down, staring at the lifeless machine. His reflection in the dark screen looked back at him, messy brown hair, wrinkled t-shirt from Target, tired eyes that hadn't had coffee yet. He realized something. Maybe this crash wasn't just a computer problem. Maybe it was life giving him a message. He looked around his office, the unpaid bills on the shelf, the dusty guitar in the corner he hadn't touched in 2 years, the treadmill covered in laundry. His house wasn't falling apart, but it wasn't thriving either. The neighborhood was filled with people moving forward, kids biking to school, neighbors repainting their fences, Amazon trucks dropping off packages like Santa Claus, and Mark felt stuck. His laptop crashing felt symbolic. Like life saying, buddy, maybe it's time to restart more than just your computer. He remembered his dad once saying, while grilling burgers in the backyard, son, when life breaks down, you've got two choices, sit in the smoke or flip the burger and keep cooking. At the time, teenage Mark rolled his eyes, but now, he wished he'd written that down somewhere other than a ketchup-stained napkin. Mark decided he wasn't going to cry over a laptop. Okay, maybe he did tear up for a second, but only because all his passwords were in there, and let's be honest, nobody remembers those once you click save. Instead, he grabbed his hoodie, pulled on his sneakers, and stepped outside. The crisp autumn air hit him like a wake-up call. Kids were waiting for the yellow school bus, their backpacks bouncing, their sneakers untied. A neighbor, Steve, waved from his lawn mower. The smell of cut grass, gasoline, and cinnamon buns from a nearby bakery filled the air. For the first time in months, Mark noticed his neighborhood. Not through a screen, not through an email, but with his own eyes. He walked to the local café, Brew Chew, a cozy spot with exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs, and college kids typing furiously on laptops that actually worked. The barista, Emily, a 20-something with bright red hair and a tattoo of a coffee cup, smiled. "What'll it be, Mark?" "Your usual caramel latte with an extra shot of self-pity." He chuckled. "Make it 2 shots today. My laptop just died." "Oh no," she gasped, as if he'd told her a family member had passed. "That's terrible. Did you try turning it off and on again?" "Yes, Emily. I also tried praying, bargaining, and threatening it. Nothing worked." In America, cafes are confessionals. People spill their hearts between sips of espresso, sharing dreams, breakups, and job complaints. And here, with his latte warming his hands, Mark confessed to himself, his life needed more than a system update. What if this crash was an invitation? To reset, to rethink, to restart. What if his life wasn't stuck because of the laptop, but because he'd been running on autopilot for too long? Mark looked around the cafe. People were sketching, laughing, applying for jobs, FaceTiming family, studying for exams. Life was happening. His wasn't. He took a sip of his latte, wiped the foam from his lip, and smiled. "All right, life. You crashed my laptop. Message received. Time to restart, not just the machine, but everything." And as he walked out of Brew Chew, the autumn wind carrying the smell of roasted coffee and pumpkin pies, Mark didn't feel panicked anymore. He felt ready. Ready to face Jeff, ready to face change, ready to face life. The next morning in Maplewood, a town that could have been pulled straight from a Hallmark movie, the sun rose over rows of neatly trimmed lawns and porches decorated with orange pumpkins and fake spider webs. It was October, and Americans take their seasonal decorations very seriously. Some houses went for the tasteful harvest look, corn stalks, mums, and a simple wreath. Others went full, haunted house on steroids, with inflatable skeletons, motion sensor witches, and glowing pumpkins grinning at every passerby. Mark Henderson, after his cafe revelation, stood on his front porch sipping coffee from a chipped mug that read "World's Okayest Employee." The air was brisk enough for him to throw on a grey hoodie, sweatpants, and worn-out Nikes. Across the street, Steve the neighbor was already pressure washing his driveway because, in America, some men treat weekends like competitive cleaning marathons. Mark's laptop still lay lifeless in his office, but something inside him had rebooted overnight. He decided, no, he declared to himself like an actor in a courtroom drama, "This is the restart of my life." But first, he had to deal with reality. His phone buzzed. Caller ID, Jeff, the boss. Mark braced himself. "Hey Jeff." "Mark, the campaign pitch. Where is it?" Jeff's voice was as sharp as the crease in his suit pants. "Funny story. My laptop." "Don't say it crashed." "It crashed." There was silence, the kind you hear before a storm hits. Then Jeff sighed. "Look, Mark, you've got potential. But potential doesn't keep clients happy. Get your life together, or this company will move on without you." Click. Call ended. Mark stared at his phone. It was harsh, but sometimes Americans need harsh. It was like being slapped with reality wrapped in a motivational poster. Every American knows that moment, when you realize no one's coming to rescue you. Not the boss, not the IT guy, not even Amazon Prime. You've got to reboot yourself. And that's when Mark made a decision. If life was forcing a restart, he was going to restart big. Mark pulled out a notebook, not a fancy leather one, just a lined spiral notebook from Target with a half-ripped cover. He wrote across the top, "Restart plan. 1. Fix health because sweatpants are not a personality. 2. Fix house before Hoa sends another passive-aggressive letter. 3. Learn a new skill, preferably one that doesn't involve staring at screens until midnight. 4. Reconnect with people, the real ones, not just LinkedIn contacts. 5. Find joy." It looked ambitious. It looked ridiculous. But it looked like hope. Step 1. Fix health. Mark hadn't been inside a gym since the New Year's resolution rush of 2020. But he laced up his sneakers and walked into FlexBurn, the local fitness center decorated with motivational posters that read things like, "Sweat is just fat crying." The smell hit him immediately, a mix of rubber mats, protein shakes, and determination. People in neon leggings and tank tops were running, lifting, sweating like their lives depended on it. Mark tried the treadmill. His knees made noises like an old rocking chair, and after 3 minutes, he was gasping for air like he'd just escaped a burning building. But then, something funny happened. An older man next to him, grey hair, headband, 70 years old if he was a day, jogged easily, sipping water between strides. He gave Mark a thumbs up. "You'll get there, son," he said. Mark laughed through his gasps. Or died trying. And in that moment, he realized, restarting didn't mean being perfect. It meant showing up, even if you looked ridiculous. Next on the list, fix house. On Saturday, Mark rolled up his sleeves, grabbed supplies from Home Depot, which, let's be honest, is America's version of Disneyland for adults, and decided to tackle his messy garage. Neighbors watched curiously as he pulled out boxes of old high school trophies, broken holiday decorations, and a collection of tangled Christmas lights that could strangle a small bear. Mrs. Thompson, the retired teacher in her pink robe, called out, cleaning out the skeletons, "Mark, just the plastic ones," he joked, holding up a Halloween decoration. By the end of the day, his garage actually looked human again. He could park his car without climbing over boxes. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. There's something about cleaning your physical space that cleans your mental space too. Americans buy endless life hack books, but sometimes the real hack is just taking out the trash, literally. Step 3. Learn a new skill. Mark signed up for a weekend cooking class at the community center. The class was filled with people from all walks of life, a college student trying to impress a girlfriend, a mom tired of eating takeout, and a guy in a flannel shirt who looked like he'd been living on beef jerky. The instructor, Chef Tony, shouted like a drill sergeant, "Chop those onions like they owe you money." Mark's eyes watered as he chopped, laughed, and for the first time in forever, felt alive doing something that didn't involve a keyboard. He made pasta from scratch, burned garlic bread, and walked out smelling like olive oil and pride. Step 4. Reconnect with people. Mark called his college buddy Ryan, who now lived 2 towns over. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, both too busy with life. They met at a sports bar, the kind with TVs covering every wall, waitresses carrying wings, and football fans shouting like gladiators. "Man, you disappeared," Ryan said, sipping a beer. "Laptop crashed," Mark replied. Ryan laughed. "That's the most 21st century excuse I've ever heard." They talked for hours, not just about football or memes, but real stuff, dreams, struggles, regrets. It felt like hitting refresh on friendship itself. Step 5. Find joy. Mark tried small things, walking at the park, watching sunsets instead of YouTube videos, playing his dusty guitar for the first time in years. He even joined a local softball team, where half the players were more interested in grilling hot dogs than actually winning. But that was the point. Joy wasn't about perfection, it was about participation. Weeks turned into months. Mark wasn't suddenly rich, famous, or perfect. But he was lighter, happier, sharper. His boss Jeff noticed too. One morning, Jeff called. "Mark, your last pitch. The client loved it." Mark smiled. "Glad to hear it." Jeff paused. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You sound different." "I restarted," Mark said simply. One Saturday, Mark finally took his dead laptop to a repair shop. A teenager with green hair and a hoodie looked at it, pressed a few buttons, and it turned on. Just like that. Mark stared, dumbfounded. "That's it." The teen shrugged. "Yeah, it just needed a new charger." Mark laughed so hard people stared. Months of panic, transformation, and growth, all sparked by a bad charger. But he realized, if the laptop hadn't crashed, he wouldn't have restarted his life. Sometimes, the little breakdowns bring the biggest breakthroughs. Life in America, in any place, isn't about avoiding crashes. It's about what you do after. The house will get messy, the bills will pile up, the boss will pressure you, the treadmill will feel like a torture device. But you show up, you restart. Mark didn't just fix a laptop. He fixed himself. And every time he heard the hum of that machine booting up, he smiled, not because his files were safe, but because his life was running again too. And on another crisp autumn morning, as kids played in the street, neighbors waved, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air, Mark whispered to himself, "Here's to restarts."
Daily happiness and motivation is hitting in. Like and subscribe.